Hi there, I'd like to focus on Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was born in 1856 in a small town called Freiberg in Austria, now known as Czech Republic. He was the eldest of 7 siblings and born into a Jewish family, living mainly in a Catholic area. His dad, Jacob, was a wool merchant, and he was twice widowed before meeting his mum, who was a similar age to his half-brother. And he would move to Vienna at the age of 4, as lots of families did for economic reasons. And he would live there and see most of his career there. Vienna at the time was the world capital for medicine. And Freud, although a private man, was very family orientated. He had a very keen sense of science and neurology, and then would be coined the term the godfather of psychoanalysis. He married in 1886 to the granddaughter of a rabbi and into an academic family. They would then have 6 children together. His upbringing was lower class, and he lived in lots of crowded areas and slums. Sigmund was a neurologist known for his interest in identifying and treating neurological and nerve disorders. He was very interested and developed a number of theories of the subconscious mind, making him different to any academic before, looking at the subconscious mind mainly, and developed a personality trait theory. Which involved 3 ego states within the personality trait. 1 being id, which is the primitive personality. 2 being the ego, which evaluates sort of the world around you and the social and physical world. And 3 being superego, which is a moral and subconscious compass. And this is the one that I'd like to focus on, the moral compass. Superego. He also developed some quite controversial theories called the Oedipus theory, in which he believed that young children would be attracted to the parent of the opposite sex. This is now heavily criticised, discredited, not followed in the psychological or psychotherapy fields or sexual health. He also developed some interesting theories on dream theories around the subconscious mind, and what then getting hold of the subconscious thoughts through understanding dreams to be able to control life choices. He was influenced heavily by a friend and Viennese colleague called Joseph Breuer, who shared an interest in working with hysterical patients, whilst under hypnosis they would share painful memories to be able to, as part of their treatment plan. Breuer stepped back and distanced himself from Freud later on in his career because he didn't believe that so much in the Oedipus theory and the law of sexual attractions. Freud himself was influenced by Darwin's understanding of humankind and was really interested in science and neurology. Before then, he was interested in psychoanalysis, which is coined as a term for the treatment of mental health conditions, often very complex. Freud himself influenced Erik Erikson, Carl Jung, and his daughter Anna Jung. Freudian slip there, Anna Freud, who Anna Freud Centre is still running, helping traumatised children and children with social, emotional, mental health needs in the UK. During his life, he published a huge selection of articles. He set up a plethora of Freudian schools, which emerged from psychoanalysis into psychotherapy. So Eric Berne, being one of them, took psychotherapy and transactional analysis, but based it on Freud's ego state theory. Freud's influence is still widely felt. He's got countless biographies. He's been heavily critiqued. He's being quoted as one of the most potent intellectual figures of modern times. He was a professor at University of Vienna in neuropathology for over 30 years. And it's still over 100 years, we're still talking about him. So Freud himself has been quoted in After Education by Britzman, which is mainly a book around Anna Freud, Freud's daughter. But he's quoted in this book as saying this: "If we make education from anything, We can make education from experiences that were never meant to be education, and this unnerves our education enterprise. So here I believe that Freud is talking about this very much informal kind of experiences of learning, that wider learning, accidental or incidental learning, not formal learning that you might get in a school, college or university. And I also think when you think about his subconscious theory and his ego state theories, it's understanding of the mind, well-being, actions, feelings, behaviours. And it's very much that wider sense of learning that we're talking about, that sort of impact on understanding yourself. And of course, staff well-being and pupil well-being is heavily in government agenda and socially appropriate for today. And I believe that Freud's subconscious thinking and the ego state thinking has set the framework for theorists like Alexander Biesta, who heavily talk about how important well-being is in schools right now. So let's talk about formal and informal education, and well, let's talk about it in a sense of learning. And formal learning has been and informal learning is heavily contested. Academics do not agree on these terms, but just to give you some examples of definitions that academics have given of formal learning to start with, Beckett and Hager in 2002 said that formal learning is decontextualized. It's a passive spectator, it's individualistic, and informal learning is around contextualized, organic, very holistic kind of work, and that it's around collaborative work often. Then Hodgkinson and Hodgkinson in 2001 have talked about formal learning as learning which is already known to others and development of existing capability. They also then break learning down into intentional and planned learning and unintentional and unplanned learning. And that's where I think that Freud made this statement. That's where I think that his theory comes in, is that unintentional, unplanned, linking it through to the subconscious mind, which I think is really important within education. And I think life skills are incredibly important. But I think having an understanding of yourself and your well-being is incredibly important. But also, being able to teach that and learn that as a true skill within the wider learning environment, whatever that might be, whether it's formal or informal. And then Simpkins talks about formal learning as long-term credential-based and non-formal as output-focused and usually a short-term thing. So informal learning has built up in momentum since the 1990s in terms of policy and government agendas. And in European Commission Council in 2012 said that the informal learning can play an important role in enhancing employability and mobility, as well as increasing motivation for lifelong learning. And I really think that this is where Freud is coming from, around lifelong learning. This is where, if you get to grips with his subconscious theory, it's around lifelong learning, of learning yourself to be able to then help other people, perhaps, or to just enjoy, learn about yourself. Scribner talks about every theory of education clearly requires a theory of society as a whole and how social processes shape education. A theory of formal education also requires a theory of how learning and thinking skills in an individual member of society and how educational processes contribute to the shape of these skills. So formal education is very much this sort of traditional educational structure. So thinking about schools, university, it can be seen as quite elitist. It can be seen as quite superior by some academics. In a lovely kind of article called Informality and Formality of Learning, the Learning and Skills Research Centre have said that we shouldn't really talk about formal or informal learning. We should talk about formal or informal attributes, and that this would be a better way to talk about it. I mean, formal learning has some benefits in that it's very familiar, it offers routines, it's something that we've traditionally done. And for me, it's about a combination of formal and informal learning, but recognizing the importance of informal learning, I don't think has always been there. Whereas understanding the importance of reading a textbook, going to school, is well socially into our traditions here in the UK. So, some academics would say there's no clear difference between informal and formal learning, and the terms can be used interchangeably, and that they're present in all situations. And that's something that I would agree about. There's always a sense of informal learning, a sense of perhaps spontaneity and contextualization. So what I would draw you to think about is that the reason that Sigmund Freud is so important is that whilst he didn't directly commentate on education, he did talk about this. He played around with this informal and formal side of things, and also his subconscious thinking leads you to think a bit more informal. So that would be my invitation, to think a little bit more informal, but also recognize the potence and the importance of formality and formal education. Thank you.